Right, so I got two big stories I wanted to briefly bring up today. Well, more like one big one, one kind of meh one. The first one is from Pierre Poilievre. Inflation blasts through the Bank of Canada's 2% target, reaching 3.4%. And the other one is bond rating downgrades Alberta's credit score. So let's get into it here. So the first one, inflation, right? Inflation. Now, here's the thing when it comes to inflation. The actual amount of inflation is higher than the CPI says. Now, I don't know if that's what Canada calls it, but again, so how the government measures inflation is that they take a basket of goods and services, commodities and stuff, and they just figure out the price increase. Now, here's the problem with that is that depending upon what you include and what you don't include, you can very easily manipulate what the inflation number looks like, right? And that's the big problem with the inflation number. So the point I'm trying to get at here is that the actual amount of inflation, well, for starters, the actual amount of inflation will vary depending upon the person. Because if you're someone who, I don't know, if if you're someone who, let's say you spend a lot of money on what's something that's gone up, a lot, you're a contractor, right? And you buy a lot of lumber. Okay, well the inflation for you has gone absolutely through the roof over the last year. But if you're someone who, whatever, you don't spend a lot of money on that kind of stuff. Okay, well inflation may be very low for you. So you have to average it out for starters. But the thing I would point out too is that how the inflation number should be measured is that you simply take, um, you know, the average person, and you'd have to take a lot of these average people because you'd want to make the average more accurate, and you simply figure out, okay, what percentage of their, yearly income, or what percentage are they spending on groceries, on their mortgage, on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you would simply say, okay, this is the percentage of the inflation number that's going to be allocated towards groceries. This is the percent that's going to be allocated towards real estate. And it would be very easy to figure it out if they did that. I don't know why they don't do that, right? It makes absolutely no sense that they don't do that, because if they did that, that would be an accurate representation of the inflation number, because that's what the average person is spending money on. Why they don't do that is beyond me, but so again, the first point, like I'm trying to say, is that the actual amount of inflation is quite a bit higher than what the government is saying, because they simply manipulate what is included to come to the inflation number. So again, when they say it's 3.4%, I always say it's probably double, triple, quadruple what they're saying it is, right? And not to mention too, there's something like there's lumber and stuff has gone up more than 100%, right? So the real number's a lot higher than what they say. And this is the one thing I can't stand about, you always hear people that whenever you complain about things these days, they always say, oh well, if you look at, median household incomes adjusted for inflation, they've actually gone up over the last 50 years. Okay, well there's two massive problems with people that say that, and the fact that they don't bring this up is kind of insane if you ask me. Number one, median household income is irrelevant, because household income means both people, right? So obviously more people are working now than 50, 60 years ago. So that number one, that number is going to be very misleading, because 50, 60 years ago, most of the time it was just the guy working. Right now, it's most of the time it's both people working. So obviously household incomes are going to go up. Number two, when they say adjusted for inflation, they're adjusting for the very low end government CPI inflation, which is a lot lower than the actual amount of inflation. So I would like to see, okay, well, let's come up with a real number. Now, if you look at median individual income, well, it hasn't gone up since, I think it's like the 90s, right? So again, for all the people that say that, they either don't know what they're talking about, or they're just lying to you. So that's something that, I really can't stand when I hear people bring that up. But anyway, when it comes to, like I said, and not to mention too, this stuff's not going to get better too. This is something that a lot of people are thinking, oh, it's only going to be temporary. Well, it could be. That's possible, but what makes you think that? Because the government has clearly gotten addicted to, and well, the people have gotten addicted to it, and the government has given, fed the addiction all this free stuff. So it's not going away anytime soon. And this is the other thing too, for all the people that think, oh, we have to do it because it's a pandemic, right? Well, no, we didn't have to do it. Number one, because there's no reason for lockdowns. But the other thing too is that these are the same people that, again, they love to pretend like they care about the poor so much in the middle class. Like, people need to realize inflation hurts the poor and the middle class the most. Inflation benefits the rich. Why? Because, well, the rich are the ones that, stocks are typically decent hedges against inflation. Real estate is typically a very good hedge against inflation. Who owns the most stocks in real estate? And other hedges against inflation? It's the rich. So who's going to benefit the most out of this stuff? It's the rich. So again, when people hear billionaires added this insane amount of wealth to their wealth over the last year, well, this is why, right? This is why, right? Look at the real estate market over the last year, right? Look at the stock market. Both have done very, very, very well. Gee, I wonder why the billionaires did so well. We put a bunch of small business owners out of business. Gee, I wonder why the big corporations and the billionaires did so well. Like, are you honestly that oblivious to reality? Right? So let's touch on the bond rating downgrades. Alberta's credit grade, usually credit score. What did they downgrade it to? Let's see if they say here. A plus to A. So that's still not that bad, but here's the thing when it comes to these credit ratings too, is that they're always artificially high too. Like, you look at I mean, the states, they got $28 trillion in debt and going up tens of billions a day, I think. Maybe it's just in the billions, but either way, it's still an insane amount. Same goes for Canada too. We doubled our debt over the last year and whatever. So how has our credit rating not gone down more? Like, the federal credit rating has stayed the same, at least as far as I'm aware. Like, how does that happen? Like, if I'm an individual and I double my debt over a period of a year, there's no way my credit score isn't going down, right? So how in the world? Now, this is the thing. It's the same as the CPI, right? It's artificially. I mean, the CPI is kept artificially low. The credit scores are kept artificially high, right? Like, the government should be borrowing at a much higher rate. And again, for all the people that, again, if we want to get things under control, the only way is to get government borrowing control. Like, there is, like, of all the policies that I think could be implemented to help the economy, especially for the long run, if there was one thing that I could do, like, if there was one policy that I could implement, and that's the only one, I think that it would be government can't run deficits, because I think that would do so much good for other things. It would force the government to not be able to start useless wars anymore. It would force the government to not be able to buy votes anymore. It would force the government to actually do good for the economy rather than let's just throw money at it, right? So, and not to mention, dude, there's so many other, and it would force lazy people who don't want to work to actually do something with their life. Like, so much good, it wouldn't even be funny, right? And not to mention, too, it would allow the best people to allocate resources, right? Because the problem right now is that it's typically the worst people that make the most spending decisions, right? And no, it would be the other way around under that situation. So, uh, there would be so much good. It's not even funny if it came to that. But again, obviously, it's not something like that's not going to happen, right? Now, again, a middle ground on that maybe would be, okay, well, you can run a deficit, but if you don't pay it back, you're not eligible for reelection and you don't get your pension. Like, that'd be the only middle ground I would allow on that. So yeah, when it comes to the credit rating, like I said, is that they're artificially low. Like, they're very artificially low, not just a little artificially low. They're very artificially low, and that's the big problem. And it's not a good thing too. People seem to think that it's a good thing that the government, oh, the government can borrow and they can help people. And no, they're helping people in the here and now, but they're not helping people in the long run. Like if you're a poor person and you're struggling to get by, and your solution is, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to max out my credit card so I can live more comfortably. Well, okay, well, that's going to help you a lot in the here and now, but it's not going to help you in the long run. In fact, it's only going to hurt you in the long run. And this is what the government is doing, is that they're racking up massive amounts of debt in this veiled attempt to help the poor and the middle class, which they don't actually do a very good job of. Like, it would be one thing if these massive deficits meant, median income was like 100 grand, and poverty was basically non-existent. Like, it would be one thing, but that's not the case. Like, they've done nothing to help poverty. They've done nothing to help people help median incomes. Like I say, the median incomes haven't gone up in the last 20 years. They're almost exactly the same, but cost of housing is going up a ton over that time. Inflation, a ton. Like I say, cost of living, like overall cost of living, all that stuff's gone up very significantly. But yeah, you don't get to earn more. So the problem at the end of the day, too, is the politicians have no incentive to fix the problem, right? Like, no incentive to fix the problem. I mean, it should be obvious, but if you don't know, it's okay. Well, if they fix the problem, why would you need these politicians? Because the politicians get elected by saying, oh, there's these massive problems in society. We're going to fix them for you. There's no problems. Well, why would they vote for you? Right? So um, it's very obvious that they have no incentive to fix the problems. And that's why we need a system where there is an incentive to fix the problems. Like, it's always the thing when it comes to charities, is charities, a lot of them say, oh, well, the goal is we put ourselves out of business. Why is it not the same with the government? Like, why is it not the same with it? Why would we want everybody to be completely reliant on the government for their health care, for their retirement, for their housing? Why would you want that? It makes no sense. Like, and not to mention, too, it's just a confession that you think that you and or other people are insanely incompetent. Like, how people don't get more offended at that, it's beyond me. Like, you think that people are so incompetent that if it wasn't for the government, they would be dead. Like, that's like the biggest, I think you're a complete idiot, like, I've ever seen in my entire life, but they get away with it. Nobody cares. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, I guess I'll just leave it at, when it comes to inflation, it's going to hurt us. Like, it already is too. Like, people who like to pretend that it's not, or people who aren't paying attention, or people who aren't affected by it. Right? There's a lot of people that just aren't. Again, if you're very wealthy, well, yeah, you don't care about prices going up 5%. That's a drop in the bucket for you. And not to mention, too, a lot of people are too stupid to figure it out, too. Like, how many people out there are people who think they see the price of groceries go up 5-10%, and they think, oh, the greedy corporations, Walmart just wants to make a quick buck. Right? How many people? A ton of people think that. And I think that's part of the reason why, well, that's one of the main reasons why the government doesn't talk about it more, why they don't teach it to people in school, because they know that the average person is brainwashed enough to think that, oh, it's just the greedy corporations just want to make more money. No, it's the government forcing their hand. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. Again, if you want to donate, you could do that as well. I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get. But like I said, at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.